In this episode, we look at letting go of control. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps. Big change, big change. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps, Big Changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Greg Clunis, and in this episode, we are looking at how to let go of control, the whole idea behind letting go of control, and why it's so critical if we want to become successful in any of the goals that we've set, if we want to have a life that feels fulfilling, why we need to develop the ability and the muscle to let go of control. One of the most painful realizations of adulthood is how little we can control in our lives. As children, we look to adults to always know the way. They're our superheroes, always in control and all-knowing. Whether it's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, or a teacher, having these adults in our lives that make us feel safe and secure is an important part of growing up. When we get older, the responsibilities that used to fall on those adults in our lives to care for us become our own. We become the conductors of our own lives. For many, this is an overwhelming reality. When we're so used to everything being perfectly laid out for us, suddenly having to choose our own direction can be scary. And what's often even more scary is the realization that while we can make decisions for ourselves, we often are not completely in control of the way things pan out. Environmental factors, mental health, illness, family emergencies, and unforeseen financial hardships all throw us for a loop, leaving us to face the truth that in most situations, we don't get the final say as to what happens to us in our lives. Now, for anyone who struggles with wanting to always be in control of the situation, this is incredibly disorienting. That's why I think it's important for us to talk about the act of letting go, of relinquishing control in a healthy way. A way that acknowledges the active role we play in our lives while still allowing us to be as flexible as is necessary. But before we go further into the episode, let's take a moment to pay our bills and thank this episode's sponsor, Organifi. Organifi is a line of organic superfood blends that offer plant-based nutrition with high-quality ingredients and less than 3 grams of sugar. And they're different from some of the other juice blends out there. They only choose the highest quality ingredients to make sure that you're kept in optimal health. Each blend is science-backed to craft the most effective doses while maintaining ingredients that are organic and free of fillers when possible. I've been actually drinking their green juice every morning for the last 2 weeks, and I honestly feel amazing as a result of it. It helps you start your day with those essential superfoods that can help reduce stress and reset your morning. And it also makes for an awesome morning routine. Basically, I wake up, make my green juice, and then I go sit outside to take in the sun while I drink it. It honestly feels great. It's a great way to start the day. Plus, it helps promote a healthy response to stress, which is always welcome in my life. The improved response part, not so much the stress part. I could do without that. So if you haven't already, check out Organifi's green juice blend the next time you're looking for a delicious blend of essential superfoods that taste amazing and will leave you feeling energized and ready to tackle the day. Go to Organifi.com/tinyleaps to get 15% off any item in the store. But make sure you use my special link. That's Organifi.com/tinyleaps. Words like perfectionist or control freak are used a lot to describe someone who can't let go of control. When we feel out of control, we begin to grasp at straws and attempt to control any area of our life that we can. Now, this may come in the form of restrictive diets, intense self-criticism, exercising until we drop, or trying to control other people in our lives. But in many instances, this comes from a good place. Wanting to control things doesn't necessarily come from a negative place, and it doesn't necessarily lead to negative outcomes. It's how people become great leaders and innovators. It's how we think outside of the box to solve problems. But it's also a surefire way to set yourself up for disappointment. Trying to have this kind of control over ourselves, the situation, and other people places an unrealistic amount of responsibility on our shoulders. When we expect certain outcomes and try to control the situation to achieve those outcomes, we feel like a failure when things don't go our way, even if it's by no fault of our own. This can contribute to negative self-image and take away from our self-confidence, because when we fail to control a situation that we likely could never have controlled, we end up feeling like we aren't good enough or haven't tried hard enough. So let me first take a moment to remind you of a really basic fact. There are things that we can control and things that we can't control. Unfortunately, that list of things that we can control is significantly shorter than the list of things we can't. We can control what we choose to wear, we can control what we eat, and we can control whether or not we go to work. But we can't control if customers at work are rude to us. We can't control if we get an upset stomach from the food we eat, and we can't control if we have a bad day. One thing that we can always control, though, is how we think about a situation and how we react to that situation, regardless of the outcome itself. The sooner we realize that relinquishing control is the first step to living a less stressful life, the sooner we can be on a path to going with the flow and accepting challenges as they arise. So, how do we improve our ability to go with the flow? Well, one of the best things to do is simply make a list of the things in our life that we actually can control. For example, we can usually control how we take care of our personal hygiene, how much water we drink, how productive we are, whether or not we practice a mindfulness technique when we're stressed, and we can control how we spend our free time. Making a list of these things can come in handy the next time we run into something that we can't control. It helps us keep perspective over what is under our control and what isn't. Another tip is to recognize the reason behind searching for control. More often than not, this can be linked back to fear of some kind. We fear the unknown, we fear failure, we fear setbacks. Taking control of everything around us is a way to try and solve all of the problems that scare us before they happen. But what if we just change the way we look at failure? What if even when we totally failed at something, we just let it brush off our shoulders? This is how we embrace the art of surrender. It's how we stop fighting. Trying to control everything puts us in a constant state of fighting against forces of nature. Surrendering involves accepting what is, even if it isn't what we'd like it to be. It also involves developing a certain degree of trust in what will be. Trusting the future is a skill that often takes years to fully master. It's difficult to trust that things will be okay when they haven't been. It's hard to see out of the fog when things feel impossible to get through. This is when we need to rely on the tools at our disposal, whether this means meditating, therapy, or just grabbing a cup of coffee and talking with a friend. It's important to have coping mechanisms to deal with the toughest days. Relinquishing control involves acknowledging that, to some degree, things might always be hard. There isn't a magic button you can get to push when you reach a certain age that will make everything okay. Unfortunately, part of the human experience involves having really hard days. That's just a fact. Accept it and let those days happen without holding on to them. There's no reason why one hard day needs to turn into 2 or 3 because you chose to dwell on it. And so to wrap up here, it can be a shocking realization that we can't control everything that happens to us. But whether or not we're able to reframe our way of thinking will determine the outcome from this realization. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I encourage you to check out the description of the episode. I've got a bunch of links that I think will be helpful for this concept. If you've been struggling to let go of that need, that desire to control everything, then some of the resources in this episode will help. I really, really believe that. I also encourage you to check out today's sponsor, Organifi. Just head over to Organifi.com/tinyleaps and check them out. I honestly, legitimately love them as a green juice. Thank you again for being here, for spending your time with me. I've been Greg Clunis, and remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.